are less regulated now. And also there are some recent developments like the smart grid was started in 2007, and FERC order number 2222 also opened the door for distributed energy like DER, small like microgrid type of a resource type to participate in the energy market. So these are a brief history of the power industry in the United States. A little bit about where I work. So I work at SMUD, or Sacramento Municipal Utility District. We are the 6th largest municipalities in the United States. We serve electricity services in the Sacramento area. Our peak load is about 3,200 megawatt. And we joined the California ISO's energy imbalance market in April 2019. It has been 3 years. The journey is both challenging and rewarding, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. But before that, I want to give a brief introduction about what is an energy imbalance market. So the energy imbalances market is a real-time energy market run by California ISO, California Independent System Operator. And it started in 2014. And by now, by 2022, we currently have 19 active participants, as you can see from the map here. And all of them are on the West Coast. The green ones are, not the green one, the orange ones are the active participant, EIM participant. The yellow ones is California ISO itself, which contains 3 major utilities in California: PG&E, SCE, and Southern California Edison. SMUD is part of BANC, and BANC stands for Balancing Authority of Northern California. Here, sorry, I need to move my mouse here. So we're here. We are part of the Northern California bubble here. Since we joined the market in 2019. We have achieved over $100 million gross benefit according to California ISO's benefit report. And since 2014, for the entire EIM footprint, over $2 billion in gross benefit was achieved. So it's a pretty beneficial market movement and deregulation movement for the utilities and the power entities in the Western United States. And also there are some new entries planned for next year, as you can see here. So like I said, the EIM, or energy imbalance market, is essentially a real-time market. In order to participate in a real-time market, we need to make sure that everybody brings their own resources to the table, right? That's part of the resource diversity that's needed to run a market. And then also, after everybody bring on their resources to the table, the load can be served by different type of resources in a more economical way. But in order to do that, we need to make sure, or the market operator to make sure that each participant is balanced before they can enter into the market or play into the market. Otherwise, a member will be leaning towards or leaning from other members in the pool, and eventually, if everybody is doing that, the market will crash. So, the California ISO has developed 4 tests for the participant to test the participants before they can actually participate in the 5-minute and 15-minute market. And these 4 tests are a balancing test, which is an hourly test that checks whether EIM, balancing authority, is balanced in terms of their base schedules and their load forecast. They're required to balance within 1% of their forecasted load. The base schedule is basically to tell the market where to start, right? The market itself is an optimization engine, and it redispatches generator resources, but it needs to know where to start. So the base schedule is something to tell the market where to start. and it has to be balanced within the 1% threshold of CAISO's load forecast for that specific balancing authority. And then we have simply to balance the load and the generation resources was not considered enough, because electricity, especially in real time, is not a static thing, right? It actually moves a lot. So there are other tests here to ensure that. For example, this bit range capacity test is developed to make sure that the participant actually have enough bids submitted to the market for the market to move later on during optimization. And it has a different component. First of all, the bids, the amount of bids submitted need to be able to cover whatever the imbalance between the imbalance from the balancing test above, right? For example, your balancing test is 0.8% between your load and your base resources or base load, base schedule, sorry. Then your entire bid schedule need to cover that 0.8% difference to begin with. And then there are some historical deviations that has come from the historical interchange scheduling and interchange actual delivery. Whatever the difference will also be covered by your entire bit range, because otherwise there's no guarantee that you can perform whatever market is instructs you to do, or the market has no freedom to move you anywhere if you don't have any bids. The third one is what we call the flexible ramp test. And this is really to make sure that during any 15-minute interval, the participant has enough ramp up capability and ramp down capability to cover the volatility of the load, right? The load is moving, or it also need to have enough flex up or flex down capability, not only to cover the load, but also to cover the potential movement of some renewable resources, for example, like solar or wind. So as you can tell from the plots here, we have expected load, which is forecasted by ISO, and there's a band based on the historical maximum uncertainty and minimum uncertainty, maximum DEC uncertainty and maximum ink uncertainty based on historical analysis. And then the utilities or the participant need to make sure whatever they submitted to the market, from a ramp up, flex ramp down perspective, need to cover that band so that they can perform well to handle the volatility in the market. And this is not to say that you can bid entire of your generation range into the market, because you still need to reserve your normal reg up and reg down or contingency reserves in your utility in your generation bid range to protect against any contingencies that may happen in the system. And again, this is a 15 minutes test. And lastly, CAISO will run something called the transmission feasibility test, which is an hourly test to make sure that you don't have severe overload in your backbone system before you can actually participate in the market. Okay, so these are the 4 so-called resource efficiency tests for market participant to participate in the energy imbalance market. A little bit about timeline. So like I said, CAISO will run these 4 tests to make sure that people have enough resources to bring into the table. And CAISO will not run this only one time. It will run it actually 3 times at T-75, T-55, and T-40 respectively. And T means the hour we're talking about, the targeted hour. 75 is minutes. So the first time, for example, if we talk about 2 o'clock, the first time the CAISO will run will be 12:45. So at 12:45, CAISO will start running 4 tests based on whatever the information available for the market participant, for each market participant. And it'll take about 2 to 3 minutes to run, and the results will be sent to the balancing authority or the market participant, so that they can look at the results and see if they're doing good enough, and they can make adjustment before CAISO start the second run, right? And the second run will be conducted at T-55. So Again, if we're talking about 2 o'clock, the second one will be conducted at about 1:05-ish. This is the same set of runs. And after that, Kaiso will, send the results to you again, and you can look at it. If everything's passed, then you're probably okay. But if something is not, then there is a chance for you to make some adjustment to make sure that you pass all the tests, right? And the last one, which is at T minus 40, is considered as financially binding. What that means is the first 2 ones after a run, it's just FYI, right? It tells you, whether you're good or you're not, and you make adjustment based on the results. But the last one at T minus 40 is actually financially binding. It determines whether you can participate later on in a 15 minutes market and 5-minute market freely. If you don't pass some of this test, there could be some consequences. For example, you may not be able to import the energy that you want, or you may not be able to export the energy you want, depending on which direction that you're failing. Remember, we have the flex up and flex down to consider as a 2 test, kind of like 2 tests within 1 test, 2 subtests within 1 test. Depending on which direction that you're failing or pass, there might be some consequences associated with that. So this is overall the timeline that Kaiso is running these 4 tests. They run 3 times. This is on the right. This is a more detailed timeline that you can refer to. After the market participant passed all the tests, or after the T minus 40 is done, the real EIM market will start at around T minus 35, T minus 47.5. So the Kaiso will run, the 15 minutes market, which is known as FNM, 15 minutes market. That's what FNM is stand for. And also on top of that, Kaiso will further optimize it by running 12 5-minute intervals for that hour. So this is on a very high level how Kaiso's market is running in real time. So each market participant will be settled based on the 5-minute RTD run, real-time dispatch run. And the real-time dispatch is just the economic dispatch. It doesn't have any unit commitment. However, in the 15-minute market, it does have some unit commitment if a unit is fast start. So the market will essentially take a lot of things, a lot of parameters of a unit into consideration during optimization. For example, the max, mean, ramp rate, minimum downtime, minimum uptime, and things like that. So all these parameters will be taken into the optimization engine and run. And then after that, Kaiso will send out the dispatch target back to each utilities or the units, so that unit can respond to that instruction. So that's on a high level how market is running today in the United States or in California ISO. So I talked a little bit about the flex capacity and why that's important. This slide is a little bit more on that. So the flex ramp requirement consists of basically 2 big components. And the first one is expected 15-minute load movement, right? In real time, the load can move all the time. So the first component, which is very important component, is really the expected 15-minute load movement from the last 15 minutes to this 15 minutes. And also we have other uncertainties in the real-time grid. And those uncertainties mainly comes from renewables, right? Renewable forecast and other uncertainties for like imports. So after you take the 2 big component into consideration, you come up with the flex ramp requirement, both in the up direction and down direction. And then each market participant will need to be tested based on the up and down requirement, make sure they have enough bid range or flex bid submitted to the market for the market to move you up and down. Why is that important? Well, this is a plot that I took from California ISO for its August 17th, 2020. They had some pretty severe situations during that time. And you can see that because of the load movement during the transition time, what I call the transition time between the solar is up to solar is down to sunset. There is actually a lot of ramp during this period, right? The blue line is the actual demand, and the orange line is the net demand. The net demand is basically the actual demand minus whatever the renewable is, mainly solar and some of the wind in California. As you can see, the ramp becomes really steep in some of this area, and which can have a lot of challenges to the traditional unit, because a lot of the traditional unit, even though they are online, they cannot move as fast as solar ramping down. So that's one of the challenges here as we install more and more solar into the grid. Remember, solar is not like shining all the time, right? It depends on the season. It go down very quickly between 5 and 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Actually, if you look at the California ISO website, they have a very nice, today's outlook for every day. You can see that it's very normal that, during these days, like sunny days, you can easily lose 15,000 megawatt within like an hour. So it really has a lot of challenges to traditionally, reserved traditional generation that is reserved online to respond to the solar decrease during that time. As you can see here, the August 15th is even worse. You can see that the ramp is really big during that time because the solar, again, is the load is moving up a little bit because it's a peak time, it's hot weather, and solar is ramping down. So together, the combination of the effect is a big, steep ramp up, as you can see here. So that's why, in a real-time market, the flex ramp up and sometimes flex ramp down capacity is very important. All right. So CAISO is also proposing what we call the extended day-ahead market, which has not been implemented yet. And CAISO itself has the day-ahead market and real-time market, but this is mainly to apply to all the EIM participant today. So as you probably know that the EIM is only a real-time market like I described here. So what CAISO is proposing today is that going forward, currently we are scheduled, CAISO is scheduled to have the day-ahead market to go live in sometime 2024, I believe. So with enhance the day-ahead market movement, essentially, the day-ahead component will be added into the EIM component, which is a real-time only component, right? So with the enhanced the day-ahead market, CAISO is able to check the resource adequacy in a day-ahead frame and make sure that the must-offer obligations are met, and then the EDAM or the enhanced the day-ahead market entities can submit their resource plan by submit their voluntary bids into the market. And then in day-ahead market, CAISO will take all these components together and run an hourly day-ahead market optimization, just like in real time, like what I described. But this time, everything is financial because there's no physical energy involved yet in day-ahead market. After that, the schedule of each unit or some of the load, if they choose to bid into the market, will be considered as the base schedule of that unit or load before they can participate in a real-time market. So basically, this is just like the base schedule that the EIM participant is submitting today to the real-time market, to letting the market know where to start to optimize a unit. In the future, when day-ahead market is in place and an EIM participant chooses to participate, they don't have to submit a specific set of day-ahead schedule, not day-ahead schedule, a specific set of base schedule, because the day-ahead clearance or day-ahead schedule cleared by the market will be the base schedule served into running the real-time market, right? So there are certainly a lot of challenges participating in the market. So first of all, there are high penetration of renewables, as I talked about. Because of the ramp up and time and ramp down time. Not only that, we recently see that, the price can, because we have so much renewables in the grid, sometimes during the daytime, we could have an overgem problem. due to high amount of renewable. And if you look at the price in California, a lot of times during those shorter seasons, like springtime or fall time, like now when you have like sunny weather everywhere, but you don't have a lot of load because the weather is pretty cool, you tend to have an over gen problem, which can send your price down to the floor. And if that happens, that will financially hit significantly to those traditional generator, because negative price means that they have to be on, they're generating and pay for it, right? There are other mechanisms in the market to make those generator wholes if they are brought online as a must offer obligation, but that itself could be a potential challenge to operate the grid in real time. And also to diversify the geography and resource mix can pose additional challenges to the market. The COVID-19 just make it more challenging. A lot of times, right now, I think more and more people will go back to office, but there are still utilities like us. I'm still fully remote, so the COVID-19 environment or the conditions make the operations a little more challenging as well. And also, the EIM is still considered as relatively new, even though it's 8 years old now. But not every participant is joining in the same time. So a lot of the new participant, the market environment, the market concept is new to them. So that itself can pose some challenges to manage the grid during the real time, because there are all sorts of moving parts there. So how to mitigate that? It's really a collaboration between California ISO and all its market participants. So I talked about, we developed the tests to make sure that you have enough to offer to the grid before you can participate. And also, we developed some data analytics tools and training to make sure that we actually track the performance of the EIM. And also, we keep training our system engineers and operators and traders, make sure they understand the latest concept of what's happening in the grid. And also, all the participants work closely with the ISO staff to enhance the market design and the business model as we go. And with a collaborative effort, eventually, we hope to manage the market and reliability operations successfully in real time. So I'm going to take some time to talk about the data analytics and why it's important to electricity utilities. So data is very important. Like I said in the beginning, the energy component. There are a lot of other companies or a lot of other industry are using the data already very heavily. The energy industry, unfortunately, is a little lacking, in my opinion. But data, if you think about it, can actually offer you a lot of benefits, right? In terms of you can use data to improve your profit by identifying profitable trading strategies. I know a lot of the trading firms, not necessarily in the energy space, but in a investment space, they're using data analytics heavily to guide their trading decisions. And also, you can use data analytics to help design economical and equitable energy rate design, right? On the cost side, data-driven insights can be reviewed so that utilities today can prioritize their high-value project and strategically schedule their, maintenance, which could, both improve your profitability and reduce your costs, because essentially minimize your operation risk. And also, it can assist the development of area-specific mitigation plan if you want to tackle some climate change problems, induced system emergency. For example, wildfire is one good example, right? If you have more data in your system that which area is specifically wildfire prone area, then you may be able to develop a better plan to tackle that without relying everything on real time. Reliability enhancement is also interesting, very important applications. So with advanced data analytics, we are going to be able to better predict the equipment's failure rates, right? And also the dynamic line ratings is another application which is very important, because a lot of time during the peak seasons, we tend to have some challenges to manage the limit, right? The line limit is actually dependent on the ambient temperature. So if we have a better sensing technology, better sensor technology, or better metering along the line to monitor what happens around the line, we actually can develop a better line rating model that gives us better visibility. That in turns will give more reliability in the system operations. And also the marketing and customer side cannot be ignored, right? I know that historical utility is still considered as a monopoly, but things are changing. There are more and more competitions entering into this space. So it's very important for utilities to utilize the data to understand what customers really need, so that they can tailor their product and offer to their customer. And also, if they want to go one step more, they can, and analyze the customer's feedback by categorizing, for example, positive or negative, so that they will have better understanding of what their customer is looking for. That will help the utility eventually improve the customer engagement and satisfaction. So these are some of the areas that I believe data analytics can be a great use in the utility industry. So next, I'm going to share some of the applications that we have built within Smart Grid Operations. So this is an interactive dashboard built on R language. It's actually R Markdown. We use Flex Dashboard, and we hosted the app in the Docker environment. So what it does is that it's an interactive dashboard, allows user to select the date, and then it tracks some of the key metrics in the market. For example, the 15-minute price, you can see here, 5-minute price, and the transfer between one balancing authority to another balancing authority, the limit, and things like that. You can actually track things like this pretty easily with this dashboard. This dashboard will update daily, and will be used by system operators and engineers, mainly for data analytics and supporting purpose. In this way, we will have a clear picture of what happened yesterday, so that if we see anything is not right, or if we see any abnormal price going on or flow going on, we know where to look at. The right side is just a very simple statistic analysis for people to look at it, how the price is distributed over, hourly prices distributed over a day, so that you can tell that, during the nighttime, the price is lower, and, it's relatively tight, as you can see from the bar chart. And during the peak time, it can be spread anywhere. So these are some of the very simple statistics. Nothing this is fancy, right? It's just a simple ANOVA analysis. But things like that will actually give people a better understanding of what's actually happening in the grid. So these are something that we put into a place and designed this interactive dashboard for our system operators and energy trader and engineer to track. We also track our the test performance. As you can see here on the top, we're pretty good. All the numbers are pretty close to 100%. So it's a 30-day rolling number that tracks whether we're passing all the tests and things like that. And this is a 7-day trend. In this way, if you're a system operator with your engineer, how we're doing recently. If you see a consistent pattern or trend that tells you, there's a dip here, or there's a dip over there, where to look into. And so I think this is a very important and a useful tool for us to provide a better EIM operation support in real time. We also did some experiments on some of the advanced stuff. So for example, we did some analysis to predict the reserve requirement and flow on some of the important paths, and this is one of them. The goal is to predict the flow better, so that we can better calculate the reserve requirement. So we tried different methods. Some of them are pretty fancy. So we tried like Fourier analysis, some of the machine learning packages is public available from Facebook, and also we tried the short-term memory methodology, so pretty famous machine learning methodology with Kraus. We did some analysis using some preliminary data to validate our finding. So what we found was actually very interesting. If you look at this preliminary results chart, the blue one is the prediction. Sorry, let's look at the orange one first. The orange one is the actual requirement, right? The actual requirement. And the green one is the prior prediction method or the existing method, right? The existing method without any machine learning or data analytics technology. It's very simple, maybe a historical analysis only. And the blue one is the prediction, right? After we apply the fancy data analytics model. As you can tell, most of the time, if you look at the overall trend, right, you can tell the blue line is actually better than the existing green line method for most of the time, especially like look this one, they're pretty close here, right? This one, yeah, this one is also pretty close compared to the existing method. So we also did a quantification, and which tells us like how well overall this long short-term memory model compared to the existing one, and we predict the flow 25% more accurate than the existing method. We also predict, because we predict the flow more accurate, we also predict the reserve requirement more accurate, which is about 15% more accurate compared to the current method. So the result looks pretty good, but it's actually very challenging if we talk about actually implementing in real time, because a lot of times these machine learning technologies, they're like a black box, right? There are areas that, for example, the predicted method is actually worse than the existing method. And if that happens, there's actually no explanation on why that happened, because everything is in the black box. So this is one of the challenges in applying advanced data analytics in real-time operations, because in real-time operation, there is, there could be significant compliance consequences. Something goes wrong and you're not able to explain it. So this, again, everything like what showed here is still in a very early stage. These are just some of the preliminary results that we did. I still see there's a long way ahead in terms of applying these technologies or the new models into the real-time operation. And one of the important reasons, like I said, the lack of explainability of the results in the system, and that could have some significant compliance consequences. So also some recommendations and pitfalls in applying data analytics. First of all, make sure you have a clear objective, know what you want from the analysis, and also hire the right talents. What I found recently, I've been conducting some interviews recently. What I found recently is it's very hard to find the combination of power system and data analytics. You can find very good power system engineer, you can find very good data scientist, but it's really hard. There's a lot of overlapping between the two. It's very hard to find someone who understands both data analytics and very good at the power system, who understand the energy market. So hiring the right talents is important. I don't know how many people are from academia today. Maybe this is a signal to academia to add more data analytics related courses into your curriculum. I think this is a highly needed skill going forward. And also have a realistic expectation is important, right? Data analytics is not a silver bullet. It doesn't solve all the problems, right? You still need to supply all the data correctly, because that's considered as ingredients to the final dish, right? If you think of, if you use the cooking as analogy, if your ingredients is not good, for example, in other words, if your historical data is not good, then whatever comes out from the prediction model is going to be bad as well. And I can give you an example. Recently, because of the climate change and also the COVID-19, people work from home, the load shape has changed quite a bit, right? And the impact of that is the historical data for load becomes less relevant in terms of predicting the future, right? So that itself posed a lot of challenges in a load forecast. You know, if you have, this is I think this is a good example that if you don't have a good historical data that can show the same pattern for the future, you're going to end up with a lot of challenges predicting the data. And also, lastly, one size doesn't fit all. Not depending on the company's need. Not all company needs so fancy analysis like the machine learning and things like that. Simply because it sounds cool, right? It really depends on your needs. I think it's like the model that best fits your need is the most important thing going forward. All right, I'll pause here and see if there's any questions so far. Let me see if I can see the chat. Okay. Nope. I don't think there's any questions. All right, let me quickly check the time. Am I still good? Oh, it's 47 minutes already. Let me quickly go through the next. The session is what I call the outlook or vision about what's going to happen in the next decades or so. So first, I want to talk about a little bit about the cell phone, right? If you think about cell phone has been here how many years? Maybe 30 years. But for a long time, cell phone is just a cell phone. You use it only for phone call. That's it, right? Not until the recent years, cell phone becomes an essential part of your daily life. Now you cannot get rid of cell phone. I feel so, unsafe if my cell phone is not in front of me. So this tells you a story about the impact of technology, which is what I see, what I have on the left side, right? So initially, when cell phone was rolled out, people had a lot of good hope about how this technology is going to change the world, right? But quickly they'll find that they're disappointed, right? Because it's not the technology, at least the impact of the technology is not developed as fast as they hope or they perceive. So there is the initial excitement here, and then quickly the disappointment after they find that it's not up, live to their hope. But over a longer time frame, for example, if you look back 30 years, you couldn't even remember when cell phone becomes part of your daily life, right? At a certain point, these two lines will cross each other, and people will just take for granted. Like now, you think it's natural that the cell phone should have all these features, right? It shouldn't be just a device for your phone call. If a company roll out a cell phone that's just a phone, I guarantee you it won't sell very well. So as time moves, the real technology impact becomes much bigger than what people or what public is expected from that technology. And the same idea, the reason I brought the cell phone is because I think, in my opinion, it's the same idea for a utility industry, right? Utility used to be, or still is, you still are a company that just serve our electricity, right? We set up the auto payment and forget about it every month and just pay. But if you think about it, over a longer time frame, utility can actually become the new cell phone, right? It can be part of your daily life. For example, it can offer your renewable energy service that a lot of people are thinking it's important. The storage, it could be part of your electric vehicle program, and it can offer all kinds of services like microgrid and DER. So there are a lot of possibilities for utility, even though now, or if you look over the past decades, utility seems to be a little slow moving. But over a longer term, I believe there's a lot of potentials before you even realize that utility becomes part of your daily life and offer you all kinds of services like this, like what cell phones is offering today. So this is my view about how utility industry or energy industry overall is going to change. So what's next? Well, it's interesting to look at these three pieces of news that I found online. In 2011, when California first announced that it's going to go 33% renewable by 2020, not too many people believe it. Right? They're very concerned. How come we can go that fast? Or it's very concerning. They don't think that California as a state will go 33% renewable by 2020. Guess what? In 2020, this is what I took from ISO. You can see that a renewable is almost 2/3, right, compared to the current load. So this is way above 33%, way above 33%. And what's next? A lot of utilities in the United States, I believe, even globally as well, are talking about the net zero go, because we see extreme weather patterns, like what I talked. Jaime and I was discussing before the start of the seminar. We see a lot of extreme climate move recently. And I believe one of the mitigation plan is to reduce our carbon emission. So that's why the net zero becomes one of the most important initiatives here in the United States. So I want to share a little bit about SMUT's net zero plan, or zero carbon plan. So we're looking at not only the natural gas generation repurposing, or some of the proven clean technologies like the existing renewable solar, wind, and storage like that, although this will be playing a very important role in the transition. We're also looking at new technologies like business models to really convert a lot of things that we can. For example, the EV, right? When people are not using it, it could be a resource that can inject power into the grid, especially to the distributed grid, right? So things like that maybe are not that mature today, but if you think about the Amherst law or the impact of the technology curve that I just showed, it could be in the longer term. And also we're looking at innovative financial options to fund this investment. And it's another important thing is we cannot achieve this on our own. It actually requires strong communication with our community to educate our customers, to make sure they understand what we're doing, and also how this can benefit them in the longer term, so that they can buy in our plan and eventually get into net zero carbon environment together with the utilities. So that's very important. What are the challenges, right? The transition is never easy, especially with this type of scope. So technology is a big challenging factor. Like I said, the renewable naturally is not as stable as traditional generator. So controllability and stability is one of the biggest concern for technology development. Reliability-wise, people are talking about reducing grid inertia, and that's really a concern now as we add more and more renewable into the grid. We don't really know how these inverter-based resources behave, right, in the system, because there's no, we don't see a fault every day, right? We actually operate the system pretty reliably, but once it happened, how the system is going to respond is still not very clear to us. And some of this, renewable, this may be a United States thing. Some of this renewable resources have some limitations, financial limitations, that limit the capability of a storage to charge from the grid. It can only be charged in the first several years from the solar on site. So that could be another operating constraints. Economic-wise, I already talked about it. Customer behaviors, I already talked about it. It's important to build that customer connection to make sure that the community understand what you're doing. I think that's important. And also rethink about the rate design. Customers are not homogeneous. I think segmenting the customer is important because different customer has different needs, and it's important to offer the product that customer needs. Maybe that means multiple rate design, maybe that means different energy product, but it's important to use data analytics to better understand your customer needs and offer the energy product that's more tailored to them. Finally, I want to talk about value. I know we're a little bit late on time, but I think we cannot talk about, a lot of people are saying that a lot of things are happening only on a distributed grid, but my view is we cannot talk about this without talking about scale. Chances are, if if you're talking about 5% or 5 megawatt, chances are it's not going to impact anything on the transmission side. But if you talk about 500 megawatt, then any energy resource is going to impact the transmission side. So the scale is very important. And DERs and a new type of resources really think about how can you add value to the grid, right? We have flexibility, controllability, and predictability. I think these are the three important things that we should always keep in mind when we connect something to the grid. How are you going to offer your value to the grid is a question that you should ask yourself. The point of this picture is not to debate where its resources should be here, but it's to ask your question where how can I bring my value to the grid? That's the most important question. All right, I know it's a little bit of probably went a little faster in the end, but I think that's the end of the presentation. I'm happy to answer any question. Again, I can stay a little longer. I think I can stay all the way to 11:30 your time.
Thank you, Hui.
Yeah.
Thank you. Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
A lot of important topics, and I think that we have a lot of comments and questions. Our participants can activate their microphone and they can make their questions.
Yeah, I see there's a question in the chat. When you say it's complicated to offer different energy product to account for. Yeah, so here is a good example. Some customers don't care where their energy comes from, right? They're okay with the base rates. For example, whatever you offer me, I'll take it. And some customers, they're more aware of the environment impact. They want to make sure that their energy is all their electricities are all from the green source, for example. For that type of customer, we can, from a utility perspective, the utility can actually offer a tailored product to those customers who have that needs, right? So that the electricity offered to those customers are actually coming from all the green resources like solar and wind or other renewables. So that's the different product I was talking about. Hopefully that answers the question. No problem. All right, any other questions?
Any other questions?
I might need a translator.
Yes.
I'll copy it to Google Translation and see if I can understand. Sorry, I should have learned some Spanish.
Yes.
Or Jaime, if you want to translate for me, that's fine.
Well,
that renewable energy is photovoltaic and wind powering, how much time they can be alternative? That's a great question. I think some of them are already in replacing the conventional generators. For example, if you see here this plot that I showed you, at least in California, they're serving a majority amount of load. Actually, I think earlier this year, California ISO sent out an announcement saying that 100% of their load is now served by renewable. So this is during the day, right? During the night, we still have a lot of challenges because solar is not there. But during the day, we can actually serve 100% of the load from renewables. And if you're talking about entirely replacing the conventional generator portfolio, that still could take a while. And one of the most important reason is, the characteristics of a lot of these renewables, they're not as stable as some of the conventional generators like natural gas and nuclear. One solution is to combine a solar with a storage, like I said, so that during the daytime, the solar can generate and charge the storage. And during the nighttime, when solar is not there, the storage can be the new renewable to serve the load. What kind of product and services can be offered in the increasing decentralized market? Thanks to the great question. I think there are, in my opinion, two kinds of products can be served, right? One is it's a base load. It can be a base load product, right? Basically, like you can have, for example, a microgrid or a fuel cell that during hot days you can turn on those fuel cell, which is not a peaker, not considered as a peaker because it doesn't move as fast, but it effectively reduce your peak load by a certain amount, right? For example, your peak load is say at 20,000, and you can turn on 100 megawatt or 1,000 megawatt. Let's make a little bit 1,000 megawatt of microgrid or those small fuel cell that can effectively reduce your load by maybe 500 or 600, which is very critical, especially during the peak time. So that's one type of services that you can think of, base load reduction. The other is peaker, right? Like I showed in one of the earlier slides, the ramp is really, the devil is really in the ramp, right? Especially in the ramp up period when the solar goes down. So if you can have a peaker, a DER resource that can serve a peaker that can be, quickly getting to the grid and start serving the load, that can be another service that you can do.
I have one question.
Sure.
Right now in Colombia, we have a difficult with the with the people that cannot pay, the cost of the electricity because it's very high right now.
Yeah.
And in this presentation, you have shown us the benefits of the energy imbalance market. How do you have transferred the benefits of the EIM to the consumers?
Great question. So at this time, the EIM is still considered as at a wholesale market level. And the customer segment, at least in the United States, is different. It's a different segment. It's called retail energy market, which is kind of isolated from the wholesale market. So to answer your question in a short way, there's no direct relationship to connect these two at this time. But the way we deal with it today is to offer some incentives programs. They can be federal incentive or state incentive, or even the incentive offered by utility to those disadvantaged community or those customers who needs support to pay for their electricity bill. So again, this is like this is a much bigger question, I think. But overall, at this time, the incentives program is what we use in the United States to help those customers. And eventually, we want to, do the energy transition in an inclusive way so that it's not only limited to the more affluent customer, but also those people who are, who don't have a lot of money to pay for these things, but they still should be part of the transition. So we want to make sure that the transition need to be happening in both economical and equitable way.
Thank you, Hui.
Yeah, and there are also discussions to kind of better connect the wholesale market and the retail market, but that's a lot of challenges because let me show you this one. There's there's a slides that talk about that. So some of the customers, they just want to, like, for example, me, I just want to pay a stable rates, right? Based on what I use, I just want to pay a stable use. I'm not an arbitrager who want to participate in the market. But there are other customers who may think that maybe they will have like a rooftop solar or something. They want to play in the market and take advantage of the lower price for some time. But there's a risk here because during peak time, the price can go up to $1,000 per kilowatt hour. That's what happened in Texas a year ago. So if you connect these two markets together, it may be true that a lot of times that you can save money with the variable bill, but it's that 1% of the time that will make you bankrupt, I would say, because the energy price can go up to the roof.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So let me see. There's another question. I put it in the translator. How to solve that solar energy only operates 6 hours a day because current battery do not have much capacities for a large city. You're exactly right. Or there are already a subs. So you're exactly right. I think, for us, we're asking that the battery should be at least serving should be able to serve the grid at least for 4 hours. So 4 hours to 8 hours battery is what we're asking for. I think most of the batteries in the United States today, they're designed as 4 hours, but we're also asking for longer duration battery, which is I think is still under research at this time. But that's a very valid concern here. Another way to resolve this is we don't have to. Not all the energy need to come from the battery, right? We can also utilize other resources like pump storage, which is kind of like a battery, but not really a chemical battery, but a natural battery. So if you have a pump storage, depending on where you are, that can be another solution. Or you can kind of repurpose your generator, natural gas generator, or some of the coal generator into a generator that consumes non-CO2 emit fuel. So that could be another solution. Next question from Guillermo. In terms of the high technology curve and your own experience, also local power matrix. It's happening now. It's happening now. I wouldn't say there is a right spot. It's happening over time, but the price is likely gonna go down eventually. The thing is, I don't know what's the strategy in Colombia, but in the United States, the solar and the renewables are implemented into utility in a way we call the long-term PPA, the power purchase program. So basically, the developers will help build and site the renewable projects, and they'll sell it to the utility. And the utility will sign a long-term contract saying that if you build it for us, we're going to buy your power for the next 15 years based on some preset price structure. So because of this project takes time to build, a lot of the utilities and utilities in the United States have that RPS go, the renewable portfolio go. So they kind of sign a long-term PPA with those developers, but the PPA price also, over time goes down, depending on the solar panel price or the wind price. So I don't think there's a right spot, but depending on your energy transition timeline, I guess that's the answer. If you have a very near goal of your energy transition, maybe it's always good to start now, even though the price may be slightly higher compared to the future. But if your energy transition goal is like far out there, maybe you can wait a little bit. It's a strategic decision based on a lot of the factors.
Hui, I have one more question.
Sure.
In California, you have a large number of electric vehicles. Probably the largest one in United States. Um, I would like to know what has been the impact of this the electric mobility in the running of the power grid.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. What has been the impact of the electric mobility in the electric grid?
When you say mobility, do you mean the EV, the electric vehicle?
V2G, yeah.
Oh, currently there are not a lot of impact because the scale is pretty small. I would assume that after we have a bigger scale, it's going to have more impact to the distributed level first before it can hit the transmission level. I don't expect this is going to cause a lot of problems because, in my opinion, people buy electric vehicle because they want to drive it. They don't buy electricity vehicle because they want to, supply power to the grid, even though they can during that time. So I think this is really a kind of like not a primary resource, but of a backup resource in case the grid is really you need to use it. It's there. So I don't to answer your question, I don't see a lot of impact.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. It also depends on how strong of your distributed network is, right? If you, for example, if you overbuild your distributed network by a lot, then most likely none of this will have a big impact on your distributed level. But if the distributed system is kind of a weak one because it's old or is aging, then it could have an impact.
Have you seen any projection into the future about B2G and because I think that California say that probably in 2050 something like that they will have all the vehicles electric. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that in that case, what do you think is going to happen?
I think the demand is going to go up for sure. The power utilities probably need to figure out a better way to handle those charging demand. Like right now, we have preferable rates for EVs to charge overnight. So I think it's important to design an incentive for EV to kind of charge in a way that it doesn't impact the grid, at least the distributed grid. Most preferably charging overnight and by offering them a lower rates. That's how I can see that will happen.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, but in terms of the number, I probably don't have a good number to tell you right now, but it's going to increase pretty quickly.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Let me see if there's any other questions. Thank you, crystal clear. I'm not sure it's crystal clear. It's not even clear to me. A lot of times there's no right answer. It all depends. We're all learning as we go through the process. So hopefully my answer makes sense. So what expectations are there in California regarding electricity generation? Hydrogen is very early stage at this time. I know people are talking about it. There's some company who's doing research in the hydrogen space, but I think it's still in a very early stage. Not only because the technology is not very mature at this time, but also because of the efficiency is not as high compared to many other more mature renewable technologies. Right. I'm not an expert in the field, but from what I read, the hydrogen conversion efficiency is only about 30 30% to 40% as compared to 70 to 80% of battery. So that itself is a huge concern. It may have its use case in certain areas. For example, if you have a very rural area, you may use hydrogen to serve your load. But I think in order to utilize it more efficiently, the efficiency is the number one thing that need to resolve. Otherwise, why should I use, right? Why should I use hydrogen? Why I can just use the electricity from other renewables like solar and battery. There is another one. How do you see nuclear generation in the energy transition market? Great question. It's a controversial topic depending on who you ask. In California, I don't know if you read the news, but California states recently extended the contract of the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant, which is the only power plant in California right now. So nuclear plays an important role in serving the base load. It's very stable, and arguably it doesn't have a CO2 emission if everything is going on correctly, but it does have the risk that everybody is fearful of. Just what if something goes wrong, just like what happened in Japan. So the risk is there. I recently see some researches in the small modular nuclear. I heard is much more safe. So those nuclears, a smaller scale could be the way to go forward, depending on the energy transition plan. Because if you ask different states in the United States, people will have different opinions about nuclear. I think that's all the questions. Any other questions?
Yep, I think that there are no more questions.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No problem. Hopefully this is useful.
Wonderful. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, it has been a very nice time.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot to you, Hui. And we hope to have you here someday in Colombia.
Sure, I'll be glad to. And now the COVID is getting away. I think I've more freedom to travel, so I'm sure that'll happen one day. Yeah.
Thank you, Hui, and thank you to all of you, to all the participants for being with us and for your great questions and participation. Have all a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a nice weekend.